tonight in the GTA Hockey Night in Brampton, where Morgan Rielly will be suiting up and apparently speaking to the media for the first time. But Dave, you kind of got in there before the rest of the assembled media with the Maple Leafs and had an exclusive one-on-one with Rielly last night that you could read in the Toronto Star right now. And it's an interesting one with Rielly because I think we all know how this played out. The Leafs were very open to moving him. Morgan Rielly was very open to being moved. Just these stars did not align. And I think there were a lot of conversations, which I'm sure you got into with Rielly. But what was your overall takeaway from the conversation that you had with Maple Leafs defenseman who, barring something unforeseen, is going to start the season with the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, one thing about Morgan Rielly, and we've known him a long time, and he's, to me, been one of the most accountable Maple Leafs during his tenure. I would say probably the most accountable Maple Leaf. Maybe Nazem Kadri fell into that category too. A guy that would always show up to stand up and take responsibility for good or for bad, right? And I think that hasn't always been the case with this team, as we all know, right? That has not been a quality that has been in great quantity in the Maple Leafs dressing room. So, and I think in this particular circumstance, Morgan was very transparent about the idea that he was very uncertain about his future for the first part of this offseason, right? But I will say this, the Leafs clearly shopped him. There's no doubt about that. Was Morgan Rielly open to being traded? I'm not sure about that because he has talked about how this is home now.
You don't think anything was presented to him?
I'm not sure about the presented. I don't know if it ever got that far. I mean, theoreticals and hypotheticals are one thing. Those things get flown around all the time. Obviously, Dreger reported that Rielly's representative sent a list of 4 teams that Morgan Rielly would, accede to if indeed he were to be traded. But that's, again, another hypothetical. Hypothetically, would we go to these 4 teams? Yes, we would. Do I still have the power to veto any trade? Yes, I do, because I negotiated that in my contract. But I'll say this, I will say Morgan Rielly, he told me it wasn't the first time that he's felt that uncertainty as a Maple Leaf, which is, not particularly surprising because this is not the first season where I think he's been rumored to be on the trade block. And I think it's there's a real veteran assuredness to that guy, right? He's been around long enough to know that this is what you sign up for when you're a pro athlete. He's not taking it personally, at least not outwardly. I think if he does take it personally, I think he's going to probably channel it into having a better season this year than he did over the last 2 under Craig Berube.
So I think a couple of things. When you look external to the Toronto Maple Leafs, some of the contracts that were handed out to defensemen over the offseason with the rising salary cap, you look at it and say, Morgan Rielly's deal doesn't look that bad.
No.
I think that is fair to say. Again, Jacob Trouba's deal. Darnell Nurse gets shipped to the Sharks as well. Some of these depth defensemen, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys making $3, $4, $5 million a year, and you're thinking, okay. And again, Morgan Rielly did not have a good season with the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially defensively. We could call it what it is. He had a terrible season defensively last year with the Maple Leafs. Now, Greg Berube was the coach then. Jim Hiller is the coach now. Chris Tanev wasn't playing for the Leafs last year. Darren Radish wasn't playing for the Leafs last year. Maybe him being slid down in the lineup, given a more appropriate role for what he's capable of doing at this point in his career. And yes, the salary is gaudy. I think everybody understands. $7.5 million, you've got 4 years left. Is that ideal? No. But at the same time, can you find a way to have Morgan Rielly playing 16 to 18 minutes on your second, third pair, where I think more likely second pair. Again, we'll see how ultimately Jim Hiller deploys the deep pairings. McCabe, Tanev, Rielly, Radish, Ekman-Larsson, Andre, Troy Stetcher, who knows, maybe someone else factors in. But I think there is a world in which they can insulate Morgan Rielly where it's not going to be this albatross. And yes, is he going to be overpaid for the role that he's playing? Absolutely. But at the same time, I think he can be a positive contributor to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the right scenario.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there was no denying that for whatever reason, and he wasn't the only player, the Morgan Rielly, Craig Berube relationship just didn't work. And Rielly was, when I spoke to him yesterday, was very accountable for that. He talked about how, he was to blame for that. There were some things that he didn't adjust to, and there were some things that didn't go well, and he was the first guy to be pointing the finger at his own chest. I think Craig Berube probably, say if he had, to talk about his time in Toronto, would say, hey, I didn't maximize that guy. I didn't get the best out of him because he didn't. Okay, that's just a fact. And I think, look, you could say the same thing about Austin Matthews.
You have to say the same.
Yeah.
I think those two guys in particular, Matthews and Rielly, were the two biggest struggles in the Craig Berube era as far as individual players and the drop off their production. And Matthews went from a 69-goal season in the final year of Sheldon Keefe to 30, low 30s.
Averaging 30 over two seasons.
Again,
33 and 27.
And again, are you going to point directly to Berube? That would be completely unfair. And, the only thing, no, of course not. But maybe is that one of the factors? Yes, I think we could say that. And for Rielly, I think, again, factor is he was playing a role that he shouldn't have been playing last year, maybe the last couple of years. He is getting up there in the years.
He's only 32,
He's only 32, but again, he's been in the NHL. What year is this coming up for? 14.
Yeah, I know.
I still remember his first training camp. I'm dating myself, but I do remember exactly young Morgan Rielly coming in and number 5 overall pick, and we're down there.
Well, you're
the early days of the radio station.
You're 15 years at TSN, and he's 14 years in the NHL.
Right,
so there you go.
Kindred spirits, Morgan Rielly and
you guys your careers have mirrored each other.
Yes, well,
he's only made a few bucks more.
Oh, just slightly. Canadian sports media, very lucrative, Dave.
But I'll say, look, you're right. The contract is the contract. And you could say, yeah, he's overpaid for how he played last year. There's no doubt about that. He didn't play well last year, but who did on the Leafs back end? They were one of the worst defensive teams in the NHL. The defense didn't play well. The goaltenders didn't play well. The forwards didn't play well. Defensively, it was a bad team. They finished 28th in the standings. But you will say this, 4 times $7.5 million is what he's got pending in a league where the best players are now making $18 million. It's a lot less onerous than it was in a league where the best players were making $12 million, right? Okay, and that's going as the years go on here. There's going to be more guys making closer to 18 than there are, now. So it's the deal will get less and less onerous as the cap rises. And I'll say this. For all the talk, I was never convinced they were going to trade him because you were trading him at a very low value, obviously, because people just watched him play for 2 years under Berube, and it didn't go particularly well. And why would you just give away a player? It made no sense to me. I'm going to give him away? Oh, we might have to attach a sweetener so that they'll take the money, or we'll have to withhold salary.
So I guess to answer that question as to why you would, the only reason you would is if you thought that player was cooked.
Right.
And you thought he couldn't play anymore, and he has 4 years left on his deal at a big number. And clearly the Maple Leafs don't view him that way yet. Now, they could. Talk to us again in 3 months. Maybe we're like, oh, boy, they made a mistake not attaching a sweetener to Rielly and getting rid of him because he can't play anymore. Now, I don't think that's the case, but that does remain a possibility. And I do think, if let's say we were doing a Feschuk 5 today, a list of Maple Leafs heading into training camp, maybe that could be tomorrow, with the most pressure on them, I don't think Riley's number one. That has to be Austin Matthews.
It's all about Matthews.
Yes, and Sergei Bobrovsky, maybe not far behind considering the contract and the expectations that he has attached to him. But is Morgan Rielly number 3 on that list?
He's up there. He's up there. He's on that list. I haven't formulated the list.
Not yet.
Short notice.
That is true.
These things, we're
doing things on the fly, Dave.
I don't just throw those trademark lists out there without any thought, AK. I gotta give this a little bit of perusal. But look, he's definitely on the list, right? Because you've got to redeem the performance from the past couple of years, because that's not the guy he's been, right? He's been a very dependable player, and I think he's been one of the few Maple Leafs who has generally seen his game rise in big moments in the playoffs. He's had some really good playoff runs. So having talked to people, and this is always dangerous kind of territory, but having talked to people who've watched him skate this summer,
best shape of his life?
No, not the best shape, but they're saying he's not cooked. He's still skating well.
Yeah,
he's skating well. He looks mobile. He looks good. He looks comfortable.